Hello everyone and welcome back to RubberStamps.com. Today we are going to be making a creative cutout card using vellum, our You're a Keeper stamp set, and some fun additional elements. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to see more content like this. So this video is actually part of something that we are calling our Card Making Academy, where we take you through all the skills that are necessary to create cards. So this specific card tutorial is a continuation of our practice prompt for shaker cards. So be sure to go back and watch that video if you haven't already. In that video, we covered how to create shaker cards using the supplies that you have at home, so there was no die cutting or Cricut cutting necessary at all. We simply traced some items that we had in our homes to create the cutout. In that video, we created a circle cutout and heart cutout. In this video, we're going to take it a step further and create a little honeycomb cutout. Again, for this, you don't need a die cutter or Cricut machine. All we're going to do is use the stamp set itself and trace that for the cutout. So I already went ahead and cut out my stencil, but to do this, all you're going to do is take your stamp, flip it over as if you are actually stamping it, take a pencil, and trace it. Alright, so pretend I traced that completely, make the shape configuration that you want, and then all you're going to do is take your X-Acto knife and cut it out. That's going to leave you with this stencil, which we're going to use to trace out the cutout on our actual paper. So the card that we're going to be making today is going to be 5 by 7. This piece of paper is our top layer, but you can go ahead and cut out your top layer to 5 by 7. Then what we're going to do is take our stencil, figure out in general what the placement is that you're going to want on this card for the cutout. I think that looks pretty good. And then we're actually going to flip it over and move the stencil to the back. It will be on the opposite side of what you placed it, because when you cut it out, you can see it's going to be right there. So put the stencil on the back, approximate where it is that you want it to be cut out. Then we're going to take a pencil and trace. Once you have your shape traced, grab your X-Acto knife and cut it out. And then gently pop out the shape. You might need to go back in with your X-Acto knife and just finish up any cuts that might not have been completed if you didn't get all the way through the paper. There. And pop that out. Next, we are going to grab the vellum that we're using, some clear embossing ink, clear embossing powder, our stamp block, and our stamp. We're going to be using the honeycomb stamp for this. And I also did a little practice round with black ink, and I'm just going to keep this up here so I can refer to that for the configuration of the stamps. So we're going to start with our clear embossing ink, ink up the stamp, we kind of want it midway on the vellum. Right here looks pretty good. Stamp the first one. Put more ink on the stamp. Check the configuration that we had. All right. And then line it up and stamp the second one. Add your clear embossing powder. And then you can put the remaining excess powder back into the container. And then it's kind of hard to tell, but by using the clear ink and the clear embossing powder. It just adds a little dimension and just kind of a shadow almost of that honeycomb print, because we still want to be able to see through the vellum to what's inside the shaker card. And I thought the black was just a little too distracting, so that's why we're going with the clear embossing ink and powder. All right, and the next step is going to be gluing this vellum to the front part of the card. So what you're going to do is make sure you get this lined up how you want it. It doesn't matter if some of the vellum is sticking out over the sides, because we can just cut that off later. Awesome, that looks really good. Then we will flip it over. You can remove that. And then we're going to take our tape glue runner and just glue around the sides. Oh. And then, because I just want to make sure I have this lined up, I'm going to flip this back over, get the shapes lined up, and then glue it down. All right, we can go ahead and set this aside. We're going to come back to putting our shaker card together in a minute, but first we are going to focus on some of our stamps. So I already went ahead and cut out all of these little shapes. These are going to be our bees, then we have our bear, this is for our phrase, and then this is for that little guy. But what we're going to do first is color in the bees, and this technique that we're going to be using is just using our ink blending brush and our ink. We're going to dab that onto these so that they have a little bit of color before we stamp on top of that with black. So for this, we're going to be using the color Sun Dazed. We're going to grab our blending brush and get that saturated with our ink. And then we're just going to dab to get these lightly colored in just a little wash of ink. And I'm doing it this way because I think it's just a little bit less time consuming than coming back in afterwards with markers. I think this just makes it go a little bit faster. All right, and next we are going to stamp using our black ink. And I did create a lot of bees. I'm definitely not going to be using all of them. I went a little overboard, but that's okay. Maybe I can save them for another project, but I'm just going to set these aside and move on to stamping the bear and our phrase. All right, and now we are going to go in with some markers to color in our bear. The colors that you choose for this are totally up for you. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go with some browns and honey colors, but you can choose really whatever you want to color in your bear. All right, and here is our bear. He is so cute. I think this is just an adorable stamp set. Love how he turned out. Again, that was just with markers. You can do any colors that you want for this. All right, and the next step that we are going to do is create the next part of the shaker card. For this, we are going to use this adhesive strip. And basically what we're going to do is just line the edges of this cutout with this strip. The biggest thing to remember is that this is what seals the elements inside the shaker card. So you don't want there to be any holes or gaps in this line. You want it to be completely sealed. So just make sure to keep that in mind as you're putting this around the cutout. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and cut the end. There is a top layer on this. I'm going to leave that on for now because I want to, I guess, kind of decide how many elements I want inside the shaker card. So right now it's not sticky, but once I remove the top layer, it will be. So we're going to leave that layer on for now. Next, we're going to take the paper that we're using for the bottom layer, and we're going to cut this to size. Again, this is going to be 5 by 7. For the inside of the shaker card, we're going to do a combination of things. We're going to put some of these cute little bees in. And then we're also going to do this pink glitter and some gold glitter. So for this step, you're just going to kind of add the elements, put this on top, go back and forth until you feel like you have enough on the inside of the shaker card. For this, you don't want to put too much in because you don't want everything to get stuck together, but it doesn't matter how much you put in of each of these elements. It's just going to be whatever you prefer. So we're going to do that really quick, just kind of a trial and error, figuring out how much of each thing we want to put in the card. Once you have figured out how much you want on the inside, we are going to take these 3D adhesive dots and just line the edges of the card, because we don't want the rest of the card to flop down where it's not supported. We want to make sure this is supported as well, because this is already raised. We want to raise this as well. So we're just going to take these 3D adhesive dots and line the card with them. Next, we're going to remove the protectant layer from both the dots and the strip, and then we're going to push everything together to make the sandwich. Alright, so now we are going to remove the top layer from this strip, flip this over, line it up, and push down. And I'm just going to scoot all of this in to be sure that it's inside the seal. Again, this strip is what's sealing in everything in the shaker card, so make sure this gets pushed down really well. All right, I love that. That is so fun. I love how you can still see the bees and some of the confetti in there. That's so fun. Awesome. Now we are going to move on to adding some additional elements on the top of the card. We're going to be using our cute little bear, our phrase, "You're a keeper," and some little bees. So this really is up to your own creativity as far as placement, where you want to put everything. I'm going to kind of play around with this a little bit until I'm happy with the placement. I had a vision in mind, but you always just have to keep an open mind once you start putting it together. So I'm going to move things around, figure out where I want everything before I start gluing it down. Alright, so I think this is the layout that I'm going to go with. I have my bear, some bees, these little buzzy things, and then I actually took this little flower that I have from some of my scrapbooking supplies, and I think I'm going to glue that right there. For the bear, I'm just going to glue him down right onto the card, same with the phrase and these white little trails. But for the bees, I'm going to use 3D adhesive dots so they pop off the card just a little bit. So that's the plan. I'm probably going to speed this up so you can just watch the process, but now you know where we're going from here. Alright, and then you can just cut off this little tail because we don't need that hanging off the sides. You could even use this for this bee if you wanted to, but I think I'm going to leave that off. And then we're going to use a 3D adhesive dot for this as well, or maybe the glue. Alright, and here is the final card. I am obsessed with how this turned out. I think it's so cute. I love all of the different elements. I love the vellum with the clear embossing powder that we have, the little bees and confetti inside, and just the combination of this paper with bees that pop off and the bear. I think this card turned out so, so cute. The only thing that you would do in addition to what we've done so far is actually glue this to an actual card, because this really is just the front of a card. So you still would need to get the foldable part of the card and glue this to the top. But other than that, this is good to go. Super cute. You also have a few little bees that you could use for another project in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this tutorial was helpful and gave you a few more ideas for shaker cards. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to see more content like this. Don't forget to check out the rest of the practice prompt videos in this card making academy, and we will see you next time.